Welcome everyone who is joining us for this new webinar. In today's webinar, as you all are seeing, the title is Beyond Single Nodes, and we will be seeing that how engineering limitations can turn into actual scalable solutions. So we have Lawrence with us today, and Lawrence leads solutions engineering at QuickNode, where he talked to a lot of projects around what they are building, help them with their data solutions, a lot of stuff. But I'll pass it on to you, Lawrence, so that you can give us a brief introduction, greet everyone, and just tell us what you do at QuickNode and how do you help projects use the blockchain data or access blockchain data.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Sahil. Happy to be here. Yeah, so as Sahil mentioned, I'm Lawrence. I am currently the head of solutions engineering here at QuickNode. I help our customers use our wide breadth of QuickNode products in their suite of products. Been here for about 3 years, super passionate about crypto and blockchain. Before that, been working in the cloud infrastructure, just the general infrastructure space for about 15 years now. So thanks for having me and super excited to talk to you guys about scaling blockchain. I'll pass it back to you, Sal.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. And for those of you who don't know, I am Sahil Sen. I work on the developer relations team at QuickNode, which focuses on education around how people can efficiently use QuickNode products. Plus, not just that, we also focus a lot on general ecosystem blockchain education so that, we can onboard more people to this blockchain ecosystem. So I think before we get into our agenda and what we are going to talk about, I'm just curious to hear from our attendees today that what brought you here? What were those curiosities that brought you here? What were those questions which you thought will get answered in this webinar? Basically, myself and Lawrence, I think we are very curious to hear that what do you think will be covered in this webinar and what will be the gains you will get from this webinar. So you will find a question and a poll in the Q&A section below. So just submit your answers and we will love to hear those answers. So until you are doing that, and we will give some more time for more attendees to join in. So Lawrence, I know that you like to build projects or apps, and I know that a lot of time you are constantly working on something to showcase how a particular QuickNode product or how just a particular tool in the space might work. So is there any interesting or unique thing you're working on right now, which you would like to share with us?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I think like you, I've probably currently building like 5 or 6 things at once. Like Sahil and I are builders, and I think going back to this question about Q&A, we just want to hear what you guys are building and how you think clusters will help. Personally, what I'm building, I saw Sahil's guide and his YouTube videos, like which are awesome on Solana Geyser. For those of you who don't know, Solana Geyser is based off of gRPC, and it's the fastest way to stream chain data from Solana. So I needed something real world to build because when you're building, you have to have something to focus on. So Jupiter DEX transactions are super hot, right? Like you can look and see who's trading on the most popular Solana DEX on the planet, and you can sort of gain insights onto what's happening. Like you can look at whale transactions or just like what are people trading, what are people buying. So I wrote a little blog post to describe an app around using QuickNode's Yellowstone Geyser to stream Jupiter DEX transactions in real time. My app is just like outputting it to the console, but you can easily stream that to a webhook or some event-driven architecture where you can go and take action. So thanks for the video, Sahil. I think that was a super helpful guide, and feel free to check out my blog.
Thank you so much, Lawrence, for sharing that. And you mentioned you are just logging those transactions in console, but you can set it up to send it to webhooks or any web-driven architecture or data solution you have. So that made me think that we have streams, and for Solana as well, we have streams, which is right now in beta. So anyone can just sign up for Streams Beta, Solana Streams Beta, and get access to it. So Geyser or gRPC Geyser is usually used for streaming data, for streaming duplex, for creating duplex connections and streaming data from the Solana blockchain. And Solana streams which is a proprietary QuickNode product, does exactly that, right? But on a much more robust and efficient manner, where you can even, filter that data on server side and send it to whatever data solutions you have, be it Webhook, S3 Bucket, Snowflake, Postgres, etc. So I would like to get your take, like very quickly, on what do you think, or when do you think people should be use either of those?
Yeah, great question. There's like so much happening in Solana right now. And I think the pace in which Solana Foundation is shipping product is such at a fast clip that people are like so confused. Like, what do I do? There's like tool sprawl, right? So the way I like to think about QuickNode and what we have as far as offerings is that if I want the fastest, lowest latency access to Solana data, me as a developer, I'm going to use Yellowstone Geyser. And then the reason for that is gRPC, it's super efficient. It allows me to get close to real-time access to Solana data. So real time that like, say I'm doing things with like, I'm like sending a lot of transactions and I want to know, did those transactions land or not? That's a super important thing that I need to know like close to real time as possible. That's something I'm going to use Yellowstone Geyser for. If I'm building a robust analytics, like a Dune Analytics or some sort of analytics tool, I still want fast data on like which Streams has. Streams is also good because it has smarts to detect like a reorg, and because streams and functions and key value store work very well together and they're in the same data center, I can hook streams up to functions and pump that into my like my data warehouse pipeline. So I have built-in ETL directly next to the blockchain nodes, right? So basically to summarize, fastest real-time data, I'm using Geyser. And if I want like true enterprise performance that I can hook into my ETL pipeline, Streams is the way to go.
It's very helpful, Lawrence, and I'm pretty sure it will be very helpful for all the attendees as well. So, all right, I can see that a lot of you have answered the poll, so we can actually move to our agenda for tonight. And the agenda looks something like this. So, first, what we will do is we will go through the evolution of blockchain infrastructure. We will understand that how blockchain infrastructure has evolved and how different kinds of setup work, what are pros and cons with each setup. Then we will deep dive into dedicated clusters. We will understand what dedicated clusters are, what benefits it has over the current scenarios, which we will understand in the evolution of infrastructure section. And then we will understand that what could be the real world implementations of dedicated clusters. And towards the end of this webinar, we will have some dedicated time for Q&A, where you can ask any questions related to anything which you saw in this webinar, or just anything related to clusters. You can ask questions about how you can implement clusters in your current setup, etc. So without taking a lot of your time, I think, Lawrence, we can just dive right into it, where you can take us through the evolution of blockchain infrastructure.
Yeah, let's do it. Thanks, Sahil. Yeah, so I'm like just taking us through the iteration of nodes and node hosting. Started here, QuickNode, about 3 years ago. I think you started around the same time, Sahil. Right before we started, or maybe you were probably here for that. We used to actually host single nodes, but since then we realized that like, hey, look, single nodes are great, but they're not super scalable. There's problems. How do I patch them? How do I scale them, right? Like I can vertically scale, but how do I handle for horizontal scale? So QuickNode quickly realized that, hey, look, like we need to go beyond sort of single nodes, build this massive platform that we built. So that I'm going to take you through as like what's known as managed, right? So starting off as a developer, like once you start off, you found your idea in Web3, you found the thing that you want to build and you're super passionate about it, but public endpoint just isn't doing it for you, right? So you start off by spinning up your own self-hosted node. There's performance and scalability issues with that, right? So you're limited based on the hardware. Maybe your cloud provider doesn't have the capacity. Maybe you want to use a specialized chip, the latest AMD chip, and they only have one of those and you need 10 of those. Maybe there's not enough RAM and storage because you want to run archive nodes. And Yeah, so all sorts of issues that you can have with like performance and scalability. It's not all bad though, right? You are in control of customization, but that does come at a cost. Moving on to reliability. So with self-hosted, you are really dependent on your local infrastructure, right? So you need to build monitoring, you need to build maintenance procedures. If you only have one node, how can you patch one node without causing downtime? You can't, right? Like you need to now have two nodes. So there's some trade-offs there going into to cost, right? Cost is a big factor in all of this. It's unpredictable, right? Blockchain is an extremely chatty protocol. By design, it's a highly distributed system. If you can think about type of network pattern, all the nodes are talking to each other at all the points in time. So if you've looked at cloud costs, like a number one driver of cloud costs for blockchain nodes and blockchain hosting is data transfer. Data egress is very, very expensive. And I mentioned tools, right? So there's the cost of like monitoring tools and all this stuff. I'll just go ahead and pause real quick. So I'll see you
So
shaking your head.
yeah, so you mentioned public endpoints, right? So since you are talking about cost, so this thing popped into my head, and I'm sure a lot of people who have been using public endpoints are new to blockchain development must have this question that whenever I go to a blockchain chain's documentation, I see there are public endpoints for us to use those chains. So those are free to use. And if I use them, I don't even have to self-host, or I don't even have to use the managed infrastructure, which is provided by QuickNode or other providers. So that just makes my cost to zero. So why should I be using a managed service, or why should I even go the self-hosted route?
Yeah, great question, Sahil. I think this goes back to one or two different profiles of users. I think both profiles of users have the same problem, which is scalability, right? So public endpoints are not meant for scalable workloads. They have rate limits built into them to protect the network because they are free endpoints and the foundations want to make sure that all the users can do some basic read writes, but it's not for scale. So if you're a developer that wants serious reliability, or if you're a trader that like wants to get in on an airdrop and you cannot miss the airdrop, or you want to trade, run some trading quant stuff and you don't want to go down, you need to have super reliable RPC. And that's why you would
Got it.
either self-host or use a provider like QuickNode. Yeah, great question.
Got it. Got it. So can I assume those as free samples, which you get at Walmart, so that you can try that product or you can try that chain? But if you were to actually deploy on that chain or actually use that blockchain, you will need actual node or connection to an actual node.
You got it. Free sample at Costco that makes you want to go buy the big box from aisle two. So yeah, great analogy.
Got it.
Cool.
All right,
So
let's see security.
oh man, security is another one that's a big cost driver too as well, right? So think about blockchain. Blockchain is running on open source software and it uses open source libraries and dependencies. You need tools to manage this, right? Tools to make sure that you're not vulnerable to some sort of a hacking attempt, or if you're not leaking sensitive data, or if your data can be changed. I think that's one of the most fearsome thing in the blockchain is like, what if the chain is tampered with? Well, you invest security so you don't have that happen to you. Now, right before we started too, right? Like what happens if you were to be involved in some sort of hack, the social capital that it takes for you to sort of, or like what is the cost of that social capital that you use with your users, right? It's sort of tangible and invaluable per se. Yeah, and then lastly, maintenance. I think this goes back to cost too. There is a cost associated with just the operation of nodes, the monitoring and the troubleshooting and like all these things mentioned in self-hosted, right? Like if you think about it, why did you start this whole journey, right? You started this whole journey because you wanted to work with the blockchain and you wanted to build the dApp or build the application that uses blockchain, or you wanted to trade on the blockchain, I mean, trade crypto, not necessarily go into this business of managing nodes and you find yourself down that line. So what QuickNode has built is sort of this managed solution, which is the next step in the evolution of blockchain. Like the summary of that is, look, it solves for all the problems that you have on the left. When you self-host, it's super high performance, has built-in scalability. There is nothing you need to do do an upgrade or downgrade. It's just clicks of buttons. Like, we handle all that for you. It's highly reliable. So one of the things we did at QuickNode here is we built a global platform, and we have capacity that's distributed across the globe. You can have predictable fees. There's less unknown with QuickNode. If you start off on our managed plan or our self-service plan, pay as you go, our fees are super transparent. We have professional grade security, right? So we have a security team that focuses on patches and updates. We do regular penetration tests. Big one, we are SOC 1, SOC 2, and we're working on our ISO 27001. You can find more info on quicknode.com/security. So like, we're one of the few platforms that have all of those certs. And then maintenance. We do the maintenance for you, and we have multiple nodes and multiple capacities. So there's never an issue with downtime. We'll patch a node or we'll patch a region, and you'll never know that we did an update unless you pay attention to the chain and there's something in our chains log that caught your eye. So we solve all that for you with managed.
Basically, I, as a user or a builder of a blockchain app, can offload all of this to QuickNode and just focus on building my app rather than doing node ops, node managing, node maintenance, launching nodes, etc. Because I think doing that is a completely different ball game, and it will require me as a builder to have a dedicated team for just doing that. Instead, where those engineers or that team of engineers can be focusing or building my actual product rather than managing nodes or maintaining nodes. And you mentioned security, Lawrence. So I would just like to iterate that, yes, our platform is secure, and we have SOC 1 and SOC 2 compliances, but you can also secure your endpoints, which are the API endpoints you use to access the blockchain data. You can secure your endpoints using JWT. You can whitelist your IP addresses or even contract addresses who can access your endpoint, or traffic, who can send traffic to your endpoint. So there are multiple ways using which you can secure your endpoints, or using which you can secure your API at QuickNode.
Yeah, great call, Sahil. You can like rest assured that you can directly embed your QuickNode endpoint in your app and not worry about keys leaking, because like, we have protection mechanisms for all that built into the app. And that's something that you get from day one. So yeah, just to summarize, like, managed, you can quickly get QuickNode managed if you go over to quicknode.com and sign up for an account. If you need more than what's there on the self-service plans, you can click on the enterprise button, and we'll connect you with our customer team, and they'll help you figure out like what you need past that. But what we're here to talk to you guys about today is the next progression of that, is what we have to like to offer that's beyond managed, and that's dedicated. So just to summarize, like, dedicated is all the things you get with managed, right? So you get the QuickNode platform, the high performance, the reliability, predictability, the security, all the features in the application, but you get your own copy of it. So it's QuickNode just for you. Just to summarize here, we'll talk about a few key points in the next slides, but dedicated is everything you get with managed, but it's designed for your true enterprise workloads that cannot have uninterrupted performance during like high traffic times, like Black Friday. Your app has some tolerances on that, or say an airdrop or like a token release or something.
Yeah, popular NFT mint.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we saw some people have issues in certain mints that they would not have had, like, had they had dedicated for their backends and maybe segregated users to non-dedicated workloads. We saw that with ore mining and all sorts of fun stuff. So
So sorry, Lawrence. So I just wanted to, talk more about dedicated clusters using an analogy where, let's say that you are a builder and you are building a DEX, decentralized exchange, and you want to provide the best possible user experience to your users, where whenever they try to make a swap, it goes through, and it should not get impacted by anything going on to that network. So in that scenario, you will have two options to manage your blockchain data, or two options for choosing the infrastructure for your DEX. One will be the managed service, one will be the dedicated cluster service. So managed service, just to give you all a little bit more context, managed service, if you go onto the QuickNode platform, it will be called Core API, which is the scalable elastic API, which you get access to. And then dedicated will be called dedicated clusters, which you see on the QuickNode platform. So the managed or the core API can be a public highway, and the dedicated clusters can be a private highway. On public highway, you have other cars as well. You have other people's traffic as well. So whenever there is a big event, like Lawrence mentioned, airdrop, a highly hyped token launch, or let's say an NFT mint going on. So just like on a very busy day on a highway, you might see some congestion on the highway, and that congestion can hinder your traffic going onto that network. But on the other hand, on the private highway, since you have that highway to yourself, you and only you will be sending traffic via that highway, and there will be no congestion faced by you. And on the other hand, there is another big perk with having a private highway, is that you can build that highway based on your requirement. Let's say that you want to use a certain type of concrete, you want to use a certain type of lamppost, whatever. In terms of nodes, let's say that you want to use a certain type of client, you want that node to be configured for certain RPC methods, because those RPC methods or REST methods are valuable to you, and you just want to rake the performance of your cluster for those particular methods, you would be able to do that with dedicated clusters, because it's a private offering and it's a private highway. Whereas on the managed one, you will get access to a pre-configured highway. In this case, in Node's case, you will get access to a pre-configured network, which is being used by a lot of other users as well.
Yeah, great analogy, Sahil. I love the highway analogy, and I promise this is a pre-rehearsed corny joke, but you can't have a car accident if there's no other cars on the highway, right? So it's the way we
True.
like to think about it. Yeah, so like if you think about a reference architecture, and like for DAX, like Sahil mentioned, you could have multiple things, right? So for example, you can have dedicated so that your DAX backend, is like right next to the RPC infrastructure, and it is super low latent and it's right there. So that can be globally near to your backend. Then you can use our core API or what's known as managed in the other slides to be globally available so that your users can have that global scale that they need and the two won't crash with each other, right? Because they're two separate highways. So yeah, I love that analogy. And then also, I'm like going back into custom, I think like what we do on the shared network or the managed network is we make the best decisions for our customers, right? Like those decisions are made with the whole of the network in mind. And like QuickNode hosts like large sums of the network for these chains that we host. And like we're always thinking about the network in mind. So for example, client version and client type, those are super thoughtful decisions that our platform and DevOps and core teams think about. But in dedicated, we like reuse that methodology. But if you'd like to see something custom based on your workloads, like that's something that we can do because it's solely just your cluster alone. So lastly, costs, right? Clusters has a flat cost. And we built it that way because we only want you to think about two things when you think about clusters from like a cog perspective. Like what are my cogs? Two cogs are what's my capacity and then what's my cost? And those are two things that you can predict. So when you start a new conversation with us for clusters, the two things that we ask is like, what's your RPS requirement? Like, what does your traffic shape look like? And then we just tell you like what that cost is flat. There's no cost for overages. There's no worry about, well, what's my data transfer cost? What's my storage cost? And what's my CPU? No, it's just one flat fee. Like, no matter what, once per month, I'll get a bill for this much. And like, this is my capacity I'll get per month. And QuickNode handles the rest for you. So yeah, I mentioned QuickNode has this global footprint or this global network that we built. Think about it as our building block service, right? So all the services we build at QuickNode are using this sort of building block service and it's globally distributed. That's a shared network, but you can pick which global region you want your cluster to be deployed in. I mean, it could be in all the regions that we've discussed where we already have a presence and we're super distributed, as I mentioned. So we take pride in looking like where our users are coming or where your users are coming from, and we make sure to scale out to facilitate your users. Some popular locations, Frankfurt, Tokyo, London, like US East, like US West, and we're also thoughtful to be where chain foundations are close to, because like you want to be close to the core network infrastructure as well, so that things like send transactions or peer distribution for faster block time is accounted for. So local support, global scale.
Got it. So it's like not just having your private highway with custom configurations, but having it at whatever place you want. And Lawrence, I had just one more question around this specific thing. So you mentioned that we can deploy dedicated clusters for users wherever we want. So I know that for our managed network or offering, we have certain locations, right? So let's say that I want to deploy or I want to have my dedicated cluster at a location where QuickNode doesn't have any nodes deployed yet. So just an example on a very high level. Let's say Seoul, Korea. Let's say that QuickNode doesn't have a facility in Seoul, Korea, and I want my cluster specifically deployed in Seoul, Korea, because I might have a big user base there, or my app can be very specific to that region. So will QuickNode be able to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'd say I love that question and I love the challenge. I'd say one of the things that we're known for here at QuickNote is like we have a ton of offerings. And it's hard to describe all those things on our website because it's just so much. The rate in which our core engineering team ships is just fast and furious. So we have more things than we're able to communicate, and we love when customers come to us and make an ask. I personally do a lot of custom requests. So like I'll talk to a customer and they'll say the exact thing, hey, love QuickNode, but I need this and you guys don't have it. Like, can you make it happen? And we're like a super fast moving company in which we shift and pivot to accommodate our customers. And like, we would love to deploy in a region where we're not there. I'd say we're up for the challenge because we are in lots of regions, but yes, we can deploy in regions where we're not there. Just need to go and make a custom request and we can figure that out on the back end. Great question, Sahil.
Yeah, because you never know. I mean, blockchain is such a new space and it's completely decentralized. So you never know where a new app or where a very popular app can come out of.
You got it. So going back to your highway analogy, yeah, this kind of explains it, right? This kind of explains what you get with dedicated. You get like no noisy neighbor scenario. So what is noisy neighbor scenario? So when you're in a multi-tenanted application, like our shared network or managed network or core API, you are on a multi-tenant environment. Now, we do have different tiers, right? So for example, like we have a free tier, a mid tier, a high end tier, and then an SMB, and then an enterprise tier. All of those tiers have have what's called QoS level. So cheapest tiers are the lowest QoS, which means that they're on the slow lane. Mid and higher tiers passing and fast lane, right? But still, it's shared capacity, and you can have noisy neighbors. Say, for example, in your lane, like you could be queued up and be subject to that sort of noisy neighbor scenario. This becomes incredibly bad when there's a popular event like an airdrop. Now we do have global scalability and we have the ability to balance our workload. So while we do run a multi-tenanted network, can feel the effects of noisy neighbor. Like I will say it's in complete tolerable range, but sometimes you may have an application that cannot be in queue for more than 10 milliseconds or 20 milliseconds, 30 milliseconds. And for that, like you'd want to jump over to a single tenant architecture where you are the only user. There is no queue in front of you. There's no traffic jam. There is no slowdown, and it's like sub millisecond transaction turnaround based on your request. So those are the two examples there.
I would like my DEX users to, not wait for their swaps to go through or not wait for another block for their swaps to happen. So, I mean, this can be a really good solution for them if I were to launch
Awesome.
a DEX, hypothetically.
Yeah. Totally get it. Then lastly, I think one of the things I wanted to talk about is like true enterprise grade controls. So when I think about dedicated clusters, I think about enterprise, and that's the way we design the product. So starting off, right, there's total operational privacy, meaning that there is no shared infrastructure, right? So there's no worry about multiple users like hitting my nodes. Risk layer is like very small because it's just you that uses the cluster. It's private, it's for your workloads only. We build all of our clusters with multi-AZ support. So say, for example, you pick US East, like we're in two AZs, and that's so if there's some sort of localized event, like a localized fire or a localized flood in the data center or some sort of act of God, we have multiple AZs, so your workload will still not go down. And again, like it's enterprise grade control, but it's also flat and predictable pricing, right? So cost to like you get a cost per capacity and you can use that in your modeling to model back to your finance team.
Going back to the example or analogy, so let's say that if I were to have a very popular, very like hyped token getting listed on my DEX, so in that case, if I get a sudden spike in the users and which will eventually, not eventually, but directly increase my traffic to the node. So you are saying that clusters should be able to handle that because of multiple AZs, and then we can have a combination of clusters and the managed API so that it can still handle that sudden spike while maintaining the performance.
Yeah, great question. So I'd say to sort of recap, how can I best leverage QuickNode to handle for like spikes in my decks, right? And like you said, clusters is multi-AZ. So it's multi-AZ in a hot scenario. So while it is highly available, you do get the capacity from both reasons. So like that can help you in handling spikes. But also if you wanted to, like we could provide you with an endpoint that has access to multiple nodes in multiple regions that is burstable and that you could use that endpoint in your own backend to scale up and scale down your clusters for unexpected failures should you need to, and you only pay for that as you go, so pay as you go. And then also like if you can forecast your usage like ahead of time, like we can work with your or like you can work with our account team and they can help get you pricing on what it would look like if you wanted to scale up for a period of time so that you can accommodate that known spike that you're about to have. So we can handle them in both planned and unplanned. So
Got it. So if I were to, scale my cluster itself, it will be instant if like if I come if my team and you and the QuickNote team comes on terms. So will that scale be instant or that will require a few days worth of notice, few weeks? What would that look like?
yeah, that's a great question. We try to maintain a good set of inventory in our data centers, but like what's a common problem is as certain workloads become more popular, we have to solve for supply chain issues. A lot of solution that QuickNote solves is like we have to get specialized like processors and storage arrays and hard disks and specialized memory to run these blockchain nodes as well as the stuff that goes above it, like our core IP in our platform. But why I'm saying all this is like that's some of the problem that QuickNode solves for you. But there is just a little bit of a lead time. It depends on chain. In case it's a couple days. Worst case, it's about a week or two. But should you need to scale right away, we can give you a burstable endpoint that is not dedicated that like you can use to instantly scale and that can leverage our existing capacity. That would not be dedicated, however. But like we've got you covered. To put it all together, what clusters really is the best of QuickNode. You get your own copy of it dedicated for you. So you've got your local support, global scale, right? So like we can support your clusters based on the region you need. You can get your super low latency, but you got that global scale if you need it. It's a single tenant architecture, so there's no noisy neighbors. You're like protected from like resource competition. There's no queuing, there's no crashes on the highway. There's no traffic jams, and you get your true enterprise grade control, right? You get your multi-data center HA, but it's also hot. You get total operational privacy, right? So there's no worried about shared data. And then you've got your flat, predictable pricing, so your finance team can know how to predict your cloud costs going forward. I think we covered it all, Sahil.
From what I can see, that clusters is a really great tool or offering where if I wanted or my traffic to blockchain, I'd be isolated from all the noisy neighbors. I wanted custom configurations, or if I wanted to have predictable costs for my blockchain usage every month, I think this will be the way to go.
Yeah, and I think just to think about like in closing before we do any questions, like the reason why we ask people what they're working on or what they're building is like if you could think about why we're having this webinar, where QuickNote has a ton of offerings and sometimes more things that we can share. And we are seeing clusters being super popular in the space right now, solving for all sorts of problems on different chains, like not just Solana, on ETH and Flow and Base and all the chains that we have cluster support for. And we just wanted to make sure we got the word out there and can help our customers, future and existing, in just teaching them what we have to offer here at QuickNote. So glad we got to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. So talking about helping our customers, we also want to help our viewers who are viewing this webinar and have stayed with us until now. So if you have any questions around everything, whatever we covered in this webinar today, whatever Lawrence covered in this webinar today, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section below, and we will be more than happy to take those questions. So, Lawrence, before people start, dropping those questions around the webinar, there has been 2 questions already in the Q&A section. The first one is not related to the webinar, but more of a general question, which is from Rohit, and he asks, how much scalable are gasless transactions? And they would like to just know more about gasless transactions and are asking that what are our views on gasless transactions and how scalable they are.
Great question. Do you have a point or you want me to jump in?
No, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, so I'd say, gasless transaction, depending on the chain, can vary my answer. And I'd say I would love to hear what chain that we're talking about. But yeah, the chain has a big impact in gasless transactions. So don't want to give a halfway answer.
Then there's another question from Vishal, where they asked that, are there any plans to offer streams for other chains? And by other chains, I think they mean other than Solana, because we talked about Solana streams initially. So yes, we do offer streams for all the EVM chains, which we support, plus other L1s like Solana, Bitcoin, Doge. And correct me if I'm wrong, Lawrence, we don't have support for Flow yet on streams, right? Because they want to know specifically for Flow.
Yeah, so we don't have Flow just yet. That's something that we can put in a request for. I think if you're an existing customer, which I think you are, feel free to chat with your CSM and we can definitely put that request for you in. And yeah, just checking. We add support for new chains on streams constantly. So there's a docs page. It's just quicknode.com/docs/streams. And you can see our chain support there, and we add new chains every day. So we can help with that for sure.
Talking about asking for feature requests, Vishal, you can also go to go.quicknode.com/webinar/contact us, where you will be taken to a form where you can fill in the details like what you will like to see more from QuickNode or what custom solutions you'd like to see more from QuickNode, and you will be contacted by a specialist person from our end. There's another question from David, and David asks, for someone who is just starting to work with Solana blockchain, there are so many tools available even on QuickNode alone that it's very confusing to navigate and juggle between all of this information. More opinionated tutorials would be great. Okay, so this is around nurturing, or this is around showing them which tools they can use. So, David, it basically comes down to what your use case is. So if you go to quicknode.com/guides and go to the Solana section, you will find various sections of tutorials which are based on particular use cases, be it smart contracts, be it program data, be it third-party tooling, be it QuickNode Marketplace. So in each of those sections, you will find various guides which not just uses one solution, but different set of solutions. So basically, based on your use case, what you are building and which stage you are on in your building process, you will need a different set of solution. For example, if you're just starting out, you will need a RPC endpoint. But if you have scaled a lot and you are just getting a lot of data, a lot of user data, or monitoring a lot of user data, you will need something like streams with key value store and your user addresses in the key value store and getting the filtered data. Another thing is that if you have a transaction use case, you will need priority fees APIs, you will need Jito bundles API where you send your transaction with some MEV share so that it goes to those Jito bundle validators. So again, coming back to the point that depends on what use case you are on and what stage you are on in the building process.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sahil. And just to expand on that a little bit too, if you're an existing enterprise customer with QuickNode, please feel free to reach out to your CSM also. Part of my team's responsibility is we lead a professional services organization. So if you need something custom, or if you just need help, or if you need training, help with chain selection, help with technology selection, help with integration, help with anything, we can help you with that. So feel free to reach out to your CSM if you're an existing enterprise customer. And if you're not, we can talk to you about that too.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, Lawrence and his team always are out there helping our customers and users use our products better, or just learn more about our products and how they can be implemented in a better way. So, Lawrence, we are actually on time. So, if anyone doesn't have any more questions, we can conclude here. But if you would like to wait for, 1 or 2 minutes more to see if someone has any questions, and they can ask that them, so we can wait. But again, you will be taken to this link, go.quicknote.com/webinar/contact us after the webinar, where you can ask all kind of questions. You can send all kind of queries to us, and you will be directed in the right direction.
Feel free to ask questions, team. Happy to answer. Sahil and I are always building, so just keep building, and we'll see you guys on Twitter in case we don't talk to you, and YouTube. Sahil and I are pretty active on Twitter, so feel free to reach out there too.
100%. And if you want to learn more about clusters, feel free to check out clusters on quicknote.com/clusters. And if you are curious about various blockchain protocols, if you are curious about various QuickNode products and how to use them, you can also check out our YouTube channel. Just look for QuickNode on YouTube, and you will find our channel with a ton of videos around various things in the ecosystem. So I cannot see any more questions, Lawrence. So I think we are good to conclude here. I would again like to thank you so much for taking us through the journey of blockchain infrastructure evolution, and showing us that how dedicated clusters can be beneficial for us and in what ways.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sahil. I love your perspective and always thinking about the developers first and thinking about their pain points and what they have to go through. And blockchain being such a bleeding edge industry, and there's either too little or too much information. So I'm like always happy to jam with you and see how we can help our customers.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much to everyone who joined, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Bye-bye.
Thanks, team.